So this isn't my story, but my great-aunt's. I'll call her Sophie for privacy's sake. So Sophie had been married for about 30 years to a man we'll call Jake. At this point, they were both in their 50s with 2 sons. Jake convinced Sophie to move across the country, even though she didn't want to. She only had family in the Midwest, and he was asking her to move to California. She agreed after Jake said he would support her. Sophie came to find out that Jake had been cheating on her for about 27 years, all with different men and women. She was heartbroken and moved out to live with her sister. We later found out that Jake had quite a few mental illnesses. He was a pathological liar, bipolar, and had severe narcissism. He was also schizophrenic, but I'm not sure if it was paranoid schizophrenia or something else. One day, a couple of months after moving out, Sophie gets a call from her son, who's been keeping an eye on his father, making sure he took his meds for his mental illnesses, etc. He is distressed and tells the story. Jake had gone off his meds and started hallucinating. Apparently he saw strange men in his garage. Jake thought his hallucination was an intruder, so he grabbed a chainsaw. I'm not totally sure how this happened, but this is what the doctors managed to get out of Jake after the accident. Jake's brain went haywire and basically convinced him that he was the intruder, as in, his own body was that of the intruder. So Jake revved up the chainsaw and took it to his own body. He sawed off his left leg in its entirety, and then took the chainsaw to his own neck and face. He seemed to be trying to cut off his own head, but only managed to mess up his lower jaw before he passed out. His son found him in a huge pool of blood and his own flesh, and called 911. Once at the hospital, he called Sophie. She instantly flew out to meet him and give support. I know it's not the typical creepy story, but it sent quite a shock through my family. They weren't able to save Jake's leg, it was so butchered. He slept for a couple of days, during which the doctors were unsure he would wake up. My aunt stayed by his bedside. She was still upset at him for lying and cheating, but she knew that this was the father of her children, and even if he wasn't a great dad, she knew her kids would be devastated if he died. I'm still stunned by my Aunt Sophie, who went back to support the man who cheated on her and made sure that he was healthy. She's the sort that looks like a cute little old lady with a knit bag and floral sweaters, but she's a total badass. She stayed by Jake even though he looked like something out of a horror movie with his bandaged, mangled jaw and stump of a leg. She didn't cry or show disgust when his bandages were changed. She just dealt with it and returned home after a few weeks. I remember going to lunch with her once. My father and I had been avoiding bringing it up, but it came up somehow. She didn't even flinch, just said something along the lines of, "Oh, he's alright, no worries. I'm alright too, but this isn't good table conversation. Let's talk about something more cheerful." He recovered, and I'm pretty sure he's getting psychological help now. My aunt is doing good too. She maintains contact with him just to make sure that he's taking care of himself and being good to his kids. Pretty damn civil of her. If it were me, I don't think I could stand to hear his voice after all the lies and deceit. She's also dating now. I hope some guy realizes how awesome she is and gets her a ring quick. This happened when I was a bartender about 4 years ago, but I think about it often and has changed the way I operate through life. I now refuse to go to any store alone after midnight. For the story's sake, I will tell you that I was 25 and an attractive, slender blonde at the time. On a busy Friday night, I was bartending with the bar manager, and he had noticed that we were very low on some bar necessities after the dinner rush. Lemons, limes, bitters, that kind of thing. So I was sent out to a 24-hour grocery store down the road to pick up the odds and ends that we would require to get us through the weekend. I picked up everything that was asked of me without trouble at the store, until I get to the liquor aisle. There were 2 country-looking guys that were probably around my age in the aisle, and they were staring at me and whispering to each other in a way that made me uncomfortable, as I assumed they were making comments about me. All pretty innocent so far. Before they could approach me, I grabbed what I needed very quickly and power walked to the self-checkout. I really booked it out of there, because when you're a bartender, it's kind of like you're on stage and required to be charming and interact with people that you otherwise absolutely wouldn't be able to tolerate unless you're getting paid to. That's why I'm not a bartender anymore. I get to the self-checkout, and hot on my tail are these 2 guys. I'm scanning my stuff, and they use the scanning station next to me. I get a better look at them now that they're right next to me. One is taller, muscular, and average-looking. The other is shorter and more plump. They both looked dirty, and their eyes were completely bloodshot. Not sure if they were high on something or had already been drinking for a while. They continued to stare at me, and our eyes awkwardly met, so I did the pleasant Midwestern-y thing to do and flashed them a quick half-assed closed-lip smile to be polite. The taller one started trying to talk to me. "Hey, looks like you're ready for a party, huh?" I replied with something like, "Yeah, something like that. It's not for me, though." They walked closer to me and ignored their responsibility to scan their items. "Oh, must be for your boyfriend, huh?" I flash the awkward, tight-lipped smile again and roll my eyes slightly. Like, this is your hint, and I'm not interested, fellas. The taller one continued to talk to me. "You could come hang out with us tonight. We could show you a real good time if you know what I mean." I reply with, "No thanks, I'm good. I have plans already." Well, the taller one starts to get upset that his moves aren't working like he'd hoped, and starts using a more threatening tone and moves very close to me, like 2 inches away. But I ignored him, staying focused on the scanner. I don't think he had showered in a few days by the smell of him. He gets a little louder and says, "I see how it is. You probably only fuck doctors and rich men like that. You think you're too good for us. We can show you that you aren't. We can teach you a lesson." Now, I'm not sure in what context he meant, but it definitely wasn't good. Still not looking at him, I turn away so my body is blocking his view of my purse, which I set on the scanner, to grab my 4-inch pocket knife out and slide it up my jacket sleeve in case I need to protect myself, acting like I'm searching for my wallet. I do this, however, in view of the self-scan worker standing at her podium and look at her with wide eyes, trying to communicate that I do not feel safe and I might need help. I turn back to the machine and slide my credit card to pay, while the creepy and hostile guys are practically standing on top of me. The machine malfunctions and starts beeping. The lady worker comes over immediately, and the guys standing next to me change their expressions from, "I'm planning to torture you for a couple of days and toss your body into the creek," to, "Just your friendly good old country boys, making polite conversation over here." They actually tried to act like I knew them, and that we were friends so the worker wouldn't be alerted to their ill intentions. They tried joking with the worker, saying I was stealing something, and that's why the machine went off. The worker was definitely not buying it. She was a 6+ foot woman, with some muscle on her, by the way. I wouldn't mess with her on my best days. Anyways, she pressed a few buttons on the screen, shooting the guys a very unimpressed look when they were trying to act charming, and cancels the order completely. She turns to me and says, "I'm sorry for the inconvenience, ma'am. The machine seems to be not working correctly. Why don't you gather your things, and I will ring you up at an actual register." She puts her hand on my back and gives me a wide-eyed look, like I gave her a minute earlier, letting me know that she sees I am in danger. I pick up my things to follow her to a register that is near the security office. The guys linger around the self-scan, still glaring at me, and eventually complete their purchase, but stand at the exit, assuming they're waiting for me. I felt like I would be walking to my death if I made my exit in that moment. The worker keeps a close eye on the guys and scans my items. As she's scanning, she tells me there wasn't really anything wrong with the machine I was using, it just misread my credit card. She said, "I had a bad feeling about those guys from the moment they walked in, and I saw them getting aggressive towards you. I already rang security to be ready to walk you out to the parking lot and make sure you left safely when you were ready to leave. Then I saw you were taking that knife out and put it up your sleeve, getting ready to protect yourself. Good girl. As much as I'd like to see you show them they picked the wrong chick to mess with, I'm glad I was able to pull you aside and make sure you are safe. I see them waiting by the door for you. I'll just keep pressing buttons on the screen and act like I'm having trouble with your order until they give up and go outside. Our security officer and I are both going to escort you to your vehicle when you leave." I thought to myself, this woman seriously deserves a raise. I thanked her over and over again and told her what they said to me and that I was getting afraid because I don't know what these guys are capable of. As I'm talking to her, my bar manager calls me to see what's taking so long. I explained what was happening, and he was obviously very concerned and ready to come up there himself and kick some ass. A sweet sentiment indeed. By the time I hang up, the guys had given up and walked out to the parking lot. The worker said to give it a few minutes, because she had a feeling they may still be in the parking lot waiting for me to walk out and see which vehicle was mine so they could follow me. My instant thought was, no way, they have to be gone by now. I was wrong. The worker and security guard escort me out. As it was after midnight, you can imagine how empty the parking lot was. Towards the back of the lot, there sat a big, old pickup truck, running with its lights on pointed toward the store. It was a huge parking lot, and it wouldn't have made sense for them to initially park like that, so I'm assuming they moved the truck to sit that way, so they had a full view of when I exited the store to go out to my vehicle. It was like being stalked by very hungry lions. When I unlocked my car and they saw that me, the worker, and the guard were looking directly at them, and that I wasn't getting in my car until we watched them leave, they then peeled out of the parking lot. I mean, they seriously did a burnout to establish that they were pissed and trying to intimidate us or something. Aw, poor creeps didn't get their way. Boo-hoo. I thanked the worker and the guard over and over again, as I'm certain they had just saved my life, or at least saved me from having to live with whatever these guys were planning to do to me. I did write a long letter to the store manager and to their corporate locations, describing how their employees protected me and how grateful I was. I really hope that earned her a promotion, bonus, or a raise. She didn't know me at all, and was ready to protect me, which really isn't her job, but she did it anyways. Needless to say, I did not go late-night shopping by myself anymore. Never will again. I moved to Sonbach in Cheshire, England around 3 to 4 years ago with an ex. Him and I had broken up by this point, and were just friends in the house we rented, and everything was great. We weren't hostile towards each other, and found out we were better friends than in a relationship. I started going out to the bars and local shops to make friends, and see if anyone was as lonely as me by this point. I had moved from Chelsea, London, to be with my ex, and I didn't know anyone there. This is when I met Craig. Him and I became best friends quickly. He was a little odd, had family in the area in his own flat, etc. So my ex moved away back with his family, and I couldn't afford to rent on my own. So Craig and I rented our own house in Worcestershire, where his dad lived. His dad would be 5 minutes drive away from the house we settled at. Him and I were best friends. We didn't do anything romantically, sexually, and he always had a few poor girls in tow. He would tell each of them that they were the only one for him, that he loved them, etc. He had around 7 girls on the go at one point. I started seeing this one guy, Jay. He would stay over a few times and would eventually become my boyfriend. Craig hated it. We would argue about him, the fact that why should he care anyway? Him and I were only best friends, and he needed to stay out of my dating life. It was then that things got physical. One night, Craig literally got on top of me in my room, put his knees on my arms, and started to strangle me. He was saying things like, "Where is he now?" and I honestly thought I was going to die. My brain switched to my mum, who was 4 to 5 hours away, and she would never know, or would have to come to identify the body of her only child. I don't know what it was, but I managed to kick Craig and I ran. He had double-locked the front door, hidden my bag, and smashed my new iPhone that I had gotten from my parents for my birthday. I was literally running down the stairs with him in tow, yelling how he was going to kill me, etc. I knew the back door was open from him having a smoke earlier, and that there was a garden gate. All I needed to do was open that. I ran for it, opened it, and made it out. The next thing I know, I'm out on the street in short shorts and a pajama top, barefoot. I just ran. I ran for a good half hour towards town and used a payphone to call 999. The police picked me up. I couldn't get back into the house as Craig had my door key. I told them the story. They took me to the station, had to unlock it, as it was past 1 in the morning by now. They took photos of my neck that had bruising, and my head that was bleeding where he had smashed me into a kitchen wall earlier. I had to sit in a patrol car to go to my house, and they picked Craig up. He was on the streets looking for me. I had to point him out and say, "That's him," to the police. He said he was out looking for me, as he was worried for me. I don't think that's true. I think he was out looking for me, to silence me so I didn't tell anyone. They arrested him, and I got told he would stay in a cell overnight, and a policeman let me into my house, as they used the key that Craig had. While I was in the house alone, I gathered my things. I had left my laptop, some clothes, shoes, and makeup in the rush. I thought I could easily replace them, and I just wanted to get away, and I was so worried he would come back any second through the front door. I had no purse, no money, no phone. My parents lived 5 hours away. Thankfully, I don't know why, but I had the sense to hide my car keys in my bra earlier that evening. I got into my car and drove to Morrison's petrol station. I was bleeding from my head, no shoes on, and bruised. I broke down there and used their phone to call my mom. At first she was annoyed that I had woken her up, but then I explained everything to her. She ended up putting 200 pounds in the petrol cashier's account for me to fill up my car, get some food, hot drink to calm down. Then I drove to my parents. I later got told through a friend of a friend that Craig was released in the morning, as it was his word against mine, and he smashed my laptop up when he found out I wasn't home anymore. Whatever. My stuff got replaced, and I'm now with an amazing guy who treats me like a queen. Sometimes I get flashbacks to the night where I truly believed I could have died. As for Craig, I blocked him, deleted everything to do with his family and him, changed my phone number, and even broke off friendship with friends that knew me and him. Please, let's never meet again, because this time, I'll be ready for you.